Hey everyone, I just got back from watching Black Panther Wakanda Forever. I have not so subtly hinted at this movie for the past couple of videos. I've been looking forward to this movie, since it was announced. I loved the first Black Panther. When I watched it, I was with a group called the Ambassadors of Diversity at the college I attended, Georgetown College. That was a really special night. We watched it, had a good time. Then we went out to eat, talked about the movie. We just had a really good time. But shout out to y'all. I don't know if y'all watch my videos. Hope y'all are doing good and enjoying your lives. Just want to say, hope y'all are doing good, and I miss y'all. But when I walked out of the theater, with the group after watching the first Black Panther, I had a state of amazement and wonder. It was, to me, one of the best MCU films to date, if not one of the best films of all time to me. The magic and the heart of the film was really inspiring and touching. You had the sense of wonder and respect for the film. It was you go in, watch it. It was just incredible, and I eventually will do a video or videos off the movie and the characters eventually. And I know I look forward to doing that. With this video, it's about its sequel. This will be full spoilers. Oh, and in the video, apologies if I maybe repeat or say anything that you maybe have heard from other YouTubers. And I'm not trying to copy one. I'm giving my own thoughts because I was hoping possibly maybe how I see it. How when I went to the video, how I would go in the movie and I would see it differently. I have to tell y'all, originally, there was differing reviews and everything for this. Some people, critics had varying reviews, and I know some YouTubers have come out with other, reviews of their own, spoiler and non-spoiler. I did not watch any of these spoiler reviews before this. I do sometimes watch spoiler-free reviews, pushing that away. I went into this having really high hopes because as I said before, I was hoping the disaster of Werewolf by Night would be a forgotten memory after I watched this. For some for certain films and shows, various forms of fiction, I have varying hopes for. I didn't have high hopes for Werewolf by Night, and I was still let down there. But this film, I had really high hopes for. Black Panther, like I said, was one of the best movies I've ever seen. The cast, the characters, the story, the score, the themes, all of it was just great. There was a few problems and a plot hole, though it was story driven, obviously, but which I will get into in a little later. But I was really disappointed by Black Panther Wakanda Forever. This film had the potential to be the best MCU film and possibly one of the best films of all time, at least in my perspective. There are some things going for it. Music is still good. Some of the emotion in it is good. The actors, they did what they could with what they had, and I think that character of Shuri, it was a mixed thing with her. She did the actress. She did really good emotion. You feel her hurt, and I will admit I did cry one or a couple of times in this, but not as much as I thought it would. Rest in peace to Chadwick Boseman. I thought the character, not just the actor, but the characters of T'Challa's death would have had a bigger impact in this film, and it felt lacking. It's kind of there, but you don't get that feeling of Shuri did not live up to my expectations. I thought she would be obviously she would be struggling to be a leader for Wakanda, and in the trailer you hear Namor. Well, I'm gonna get to him in a little bit, but Shuri, I was expecting her to struggle with in this film. She did struggle, but not in the sense I thought. I thought she would part of it I could get. She was some people when they lose people when I lost my grandmother. As you know, I was unable to do my videos for a while, and I was it's like affected me in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm still struggling to do videos. I'm still struggling with my writing. Not to talk about me, sorry, but with Shuri, she was getting too in depth with her technology, which some people they act in or react to tragic situations, like in this case, family deaths or loved ones' deaths, differently. She was like going deep into her technology, like almost like isolating herself, just like trying to like not feel like the hurt that was going in her, even if she didn't want to admit it. But through Nemours words, only the most broken people can be leaders. I thought she would have like struggled, but eventually like picked up like the broken pieces, of herself, like she felt for her brother's death, and unfortunately for Ramonda's death. I thought that she would have like struggled to find herself, to work towards leading our people who needed her. I mean, she was in an awful situation. That she lost her brother, that she lost her mother, and the situation with Namor and Talokan was like right on the doorstep. And Wakanda needed their leader. They needed their queen. It felt like the situation, like the story in it, was not just with Shuri, but like the plot was kind of like it didn't feel like as compelling as with the first Black Panther. With Killmonger and Jadaka and his struggle with his past and what he was fighting for. And you could feel like the emotion and like the hurt that was coming from him, and like what he was driving himself for. Here with Namor and Shuri, but sorry, I don't know if I can sidetrack, but Shuri, she was not like stepping into the role as a leader as I thought she would. She was like, single-mindedly seeking vengeance against Namor, which I still thought would have worked if it was like written differently. But with Shuri, it feels like she almost like casting aside, like, well, of course, and people when they're hurt and they're angry, she, saw her mother die. Well, in a sense, like, she came in and she saw her mother having been drowned. I mean, she didn't see Ramonda fall into water to save Riri, which was, incredible on her part. I mean, the way, Ramonda, was, what she did for Riri, someone she didn't even know, like, was truly heartfelt and obviously really sad because, well, there's the whole thing of like, some people say, she didn't know Riri anything, but her first instinct was to help her. But Shuri, her family, her mother and her brother, were individuals who care for others, and what they do for others is, obviously very heroic. And Shuri, she was driven by hate and anger. With it, I felt like the direction of the film was kind of problematic. I mean, the action, like, some of the action like wasn't really well choreographed. Like the fights seemed kind of, I mean, it didn't feel like as intense as it should have been. I mean, Shuri, it felt like, she wasn't like, she didn't go down a path I thought she would. I mean, I mentioned this to some people about the next Black Panther. Like, I was hoping to maybe see Bast in this. I mean, she was, I think, seen in Thor: Love and Thunder, but she didn't get any like speaking. She didn't get like any. I don't think she got any lines or anything, which was be disappointing. And she, you think that she, her presence, her power would be really felt because in the comics she's, she's not always seen, but she's present at least at some points. And I thought we would see this because at the beginning of the film, Shuri begged Bast to save her brother, and she said she would believe in her because I think Shuri, she's an atheist. I think an atheist, but I thought we would get the steps towards Shuri, like not just like trying to pick up the pieces of herself, but like pick up like the pieces of Wakanda, that were maybe not seen but felt in the first one. Like she would like go along and pick up and grasp and feel the pieces of the magic within Wakanda. I mean, the plot hole that I mentioned earlier in the first Black Panther was when Killmonger and Jadaka burned the heart-shaped herb garden. And I thought in this, like, what were they going to do? Like, how is there going to be, like, another Black Panther without the heart-shaped herb? I mean, as in the movie, as it's been done in the comics, sometimes I think they replicated the heart-shaped herb by doing a synthetic version of it. And obviously, the story of Bashanga being given a vision by Bast and found the heart-shaped herb, like how Talokan's origin was, how the founders of the city, their spiritual leader was given a vision by Chalk, their god of rain, the god of rain from Mayan legend, and they were given a plant similar to the heart-shaped herb, that allowed them to live underwater. And Shuri created a new herb based off that, but with like the gift she was given by Namor, his mother's heirloom. I thought, well, that was a different spin. I thought like it was, well, in a sense, like I figured like I guess she thought like using like what it was used against Talokan, but I thought that, which Enter M'Baku, he was one of my favorite characters in the first Black Panther. Here, I thought that, unfortunately, he wasn't as compelling as I thought he would be. You get like, there's just a lot of problems with this, but I thought he would possibly, like he was, he looked down on Shuri in the first film. But here I thought, with the experiences that have happened, that he would be like, as he told, was with T'Challa, he had him like promise like to be an advisor to Shuri and to her family, and I thought here he would like have asked her to, or like counseled her to which I think this is like, I saw this on Tumblr, and it was like, it like had this part of where it mentioned like how instead of like where in the present the Wakandans like had the garden for the heart-shaped herbs. It mentioned that that in the like it'd be asking like what like I'm sure knowing so much about the future, but asking her what she knew of the past, and having her as the possibly the older legends would go, like how Bashanga discovered the herb. Maybe Shuri would need to go on a spiritual journey to find the hardship, or possibly in the jungle, but like also having her meet Bast, like have this divine, spiritual, supernatural, paranormal, whatever you want to call it, encounter, and have Shuri like meet the goddess, and have this conversation, and obviously Shuri confronting Bast on her brother's death and her mother's death, and having Bast try to talk to her and counsel her. Obviously, in that situation, we as a human being confronting a deity like that, asking or crying out with heart, in just in heartfelt just agony, why things are happening or why they've happened in this way. Ask Shuri asking Bast, why has this happened? Why didn't you do anything? Along those lines. And the comics, Bast, well, not always there, is more present than, say, some deities are, at least in the Marvel comics. And I'm not well, in the sense of like having having the goddess be more present in the lore and in the foundation of Wakanda, because I think it was said that in this we would see a lot more of Wakanda, and we didn't actually see that. We didn't really. There was a couple of scenes here or there, but we didn't really get that sense of like the exploration, not just of like the country, like like the physical plane, but also the spiritual plane. We didn't really see much of either of that. We saw like minimal things here and there, and also with Telecom, we thought we would see a lot of that, but that really wasn't highly explored either. But with Bast, she could have from I guess a deity would see things from a different perspective, and Bast is presented as I think the whole Thor: Love and Thunder film had a different like thing on gods, which I think Bast would have had like a different thing, which I think as I said Thor: Love and Thunder was not a good film. I mean, Bast should have had like maybe at least like some presence there, like speaking and everything. Like we could have seen her at least in that film have like a different energy, a different like presence and power, like make her have her stand out. And in this film, like really explore her character, like explore the nature of how she, of her blessings of Wakanda, and see Shuri listen and learn from her, and maybe part and like going towards take another step in like the healing process, like having having Bast's personal blessing onto her, have her be there, like have her speak to Shuri and get this feeling of like this connection, like the connection between goddess and the mantle and the people of the line of Black Panthers, and feel this connection there. And where was that? I mean, I know it's my personal thoughts on what could have been, and I'm not saying I'm better than Ryan Coogler. I'm not saying that, because he did a fantastic job with the first Black Panther. I just feel like that energy, that passion, that power that was in the first film just wasn't here. I was hoping to see Bast in the first film, not just in the beginning of like that, that image of her, but just see her at maybe at least one point where she talks to T'Challa, maybe. But I was hoping here, where Shuri is broken and she's like doesn't know where to lean towards, see her like go on this journey. I mean, not cast aside technology, but like to open herself up to like this wider world, like seeing reality maybe is more than what she thought. Because in the first one, when T'Challa was when M'Baku showed them T'Challa, when they gave him the herb and covered him with the snow, she was saying she was doing the prayer with her mother, and I mean that time with Shuri was with Ramonda and Nakia, and they were hoping, praying for basically like divine or spiritual intervention. And here we could have seen, in a sense, like Shuri being touched and blessed by the goddess. See her try to help Shuri, like help her like see things in another way, or try to motivate her to being the leader and the protector that Wakanda needed. I mean, not just that, but like help her like connect to the other characters. I mean, she was single-minded, in this film, and it felt like her connection to the other characters, wasn't as strong as it maybe been earlier, because of with her mother's death and her hatred of Namor. It feels like Shuri's potential, or what she needs to be in this film, in the sense like of being a leader and protector, it wasn't there, and I think that was majorly messed up on the story and the character story and Shuri's story in this. Because I mean, I guess she's not even like the she's not even like really the queen now. I guess I mean, at the end you see M'Baku like challenging for the throne. I like M'Baku. I mean, he's a good character, but but not. I mean, even there, I mean, like these characters felt like they weren't as compelling as they were in the first one. It felt like they were less. They were less like fleshed out, or they felt like some of the writing of the characters was not as strong. Like in one of the trailers, one of my favorite scenes is maybe this is silly, but one of my favorite scenes is M'Baku beating his chest, and I thought like in that I thought that it would have been like I mean, I was worried about M'Baku in this. I mean, I thought like based off that, I thought maybe it was like the Wakandans were in trouble because you saw the water, you saw Namor and his soldiers, in Wakanda, and I thought maybe like the Wakandans were like retreating or something, or he was the only one there to maybe protect people or to get them away or defend them. I thought like this was like possibly almost like a last stand, maybe like he was like standing in defiance to the to Namor and his soldiers, and meant he he gave like a powerful speech. He would hear and feel his roar, and then he beats his chest in defiance and a sign of strength. And I mean, and it's like he does it like it feels like he's almost like he wasn't like given the same like passion in writing he was in the first. I mean, you feel like he's a stubborn yet honorable. He's a stubborn and honorable character. And you see that he loves and cares for his people, and even when even though he said like he owed T'Challa a debt and he wouldn't help him, we saw when it came to the battle between the Dora Milaje and the border tribe soldiers, you see him and the Jabari come in and help them. He it was like to no advantage of his own, as some might say, because the Jabari in the comics have like a not so like haven't had like such a great like storyline or storylines in there, but we saw like a different thing to him, which I think was good because it like gave the Jabari another perspective. And while they may have been like stubborn and casting aside technology, which was true to their characters, but you see that they still are an honorable people, and they will be there to protect people. And like he lifts up the border tribe soldier with just one hand with no effort, and he just sits. He just stands there holding him, and he stands there in defiance and says, witness the might of the Jabari, and they just go at it with the border tribe. And I did not get that feeling from him. I thought that beating of the chest thing would have been like this, but on another level, and it was really sad to see one of my favorite Black Panther characters. Not just that one of my favorite MCU characters just written like that. It felt like the characters, not just M'Baku and Shuri, but it felt like the characters were just not given the same level of passion and emotion in the sense of the writing. As they were in the first. I mean, there were some awkward scenes of the characters. There was the whooping and the Jabari that they did, but and that was like more that was felt more like powerful and defiant in the first, and this one felt more silly, and I did not feel that from the character. I mean, M'Baku had this humorous. He had his humorous moments, but he was still like a character that you felt like his presence, and you could feel like his direction and his perspective, in the sense like how he views the world and how he acts in accordance. And we did not really get that here. I mean, you feel like there were some scenes where he was like, advocating for peace, which I thought maybe it, I, it was kind of understandable. Man, he when he fights, it's mostly in like for his people, like their protection, and when he fights for what he thinks is right. Whether or not some will agree with it or not, but here he I thought would talk with Sherry in the sense like, no, we have to show strength, but we do not need to say go for all out war. He could have been like the spiritual and like emotional or moral advice. Like, well, he was supposed to be advisor, but you did not get that feeling. He felt like somewhere just to give like a line here or there, and it didn't feel like it had much impact. And I think his character was wasted in this film. I was expecting and hoping for a lot more. Like I thought, based off the trailer, which unfortunately the trailer, it hyped up the movie, but the movie was a letdown for not just for the story, but for the characters. Like I said, but the more he has complicated history in Marvel. I mean, I'm not as fully aware of his character. I mean, I don't know much like all that much about him, so I cannot judge him totally. I mean, there was people who had issue with the direction for the character in the sense of like the heritage and like meaning of it. I mean, because I think the whole thing was he is a mutant, and I thought that was really good in it. And you get this feeling like he is described as being the same weight class as as Thor and Hulk. I think in the comics he's fought some heavy hitter characters. Like say Captain Marvel. Who is obviously another a high power character, and we I was expecting like we did to get some scenes of like him like like showing his power. I mean, them like going with like the him just like overpowering Shuri mostly in the fights. I mean the Black Panther is strong. Not not as strong as someone like say as Hulk or Thor. I mean obviously Black Panther is supposed to be stronger than any human or any super soldier, which we saw sort of got hints with T'Challa with him being able to overpower Captain America and the Winter Soldier. Well, some scenes it might have been like an issue because some people still think Steve Rogers was stronger, but I'm not going to get into that. But with the synthetic hardship era, we did see that one scene of like Shuri just punching the armor and it just going flying back. That was like a blatant display of power, which it's like I think it was okay. Like it felt almost more powerful than like T'Challa because when he struck the armor in the first film, it did not nearly fly as fast or as hard as this scene showed, but it kind of like I mean, if she was that strong, I mean, I thought maybe she should have like had a better chance against more just because of like the level of power that in that one scene, but it didn't seem to follow up in their fight. I mean, obviously it was still the case. Him obviously, I think as they said, like in like out of water, he's physically strong as Thor, but in the water, he's as strong as Hulk in the sense of like physical strength. I mean, and like I guess like true power, which there's like complications there, but I'm not getting into that. But like he was obviously going to be physically stronger than her. But with that scene, I thought that it was more reflecting. It was more like how Hulk punched Thor in the first Avengers film, rather than how T'Challa struck the armor in the Black Panther. But I thought with that scene, she would have had like, possibly gone toe to toe with him. She had her moments, her, scratching his face and slashing one of his wings, but it felt like at some points the power levels and like scaling was inconsistent at times. But there was some good scenes in there, like with the surprise of Injadaka, in the ancestral plane, and his scenes with Shuri, and like how you could like feel like the anger and emotion in that scene. I mean, obviously he didn't get like as obviously understandably didn't get as much like screen time as he did in the first one, but you could still feel like he was the same character. I mean, he doesn't regret his actions. I mean, from his perspective, that is understandable, and you could feel like this like the you could feel like the tension in the air there, because Shuri was in that hate state, but I thought that with that she would have um like possibly led down maybe to do some actions that maybe that maybe some of her people would maybe saw as like like just shocking maybe, and that would have led her possibly down her spiritual journey. But actually, now that I think about this a bit, going back to something else I said, she took like a small, like she barely took like a small, like a sip of the that herb, and where T'Challa, I think, took the whole thing of the original one, and she was like as strong as she was with that, and I thought she would have drank the whole thing, and if she did that, she possibly could have been even more powerful, which I thought would have like changed things. Maybe she did that off screen, I don't know, but she like took a small sip where T'Challa took the whole thing, and you could like feel like the power difference in like those different individual scenes. Sorry, I just thought of that now, but yeah, that was like a strange thing because, like I said, if she took the whole thing, she could possibly have been even more powerful. But which there's a problem there. The whole power scaling thing there, but I'm sort of getting sidetracked. But that's another problem. But no, I mean the storylines for these characters were a bit iffy, though. For Namor or Kukulkan, that was sort of more understandable. As a king, it's his responsibility, to protect people. I mean, how his approach to it was, obviously, possibly was, questionable. I mean, striking first could have led to, would have led obviously to, as he said, like as he mentioned to Shuri, what she said, like the world burning. But with here, he has like done things that are questionable in the comics. With Namor, it felt like this storyline was. I think they said he wasn't really a villain in this, and I could sort of see that. But who was really the true antagonist? Who was the true villain of the story? I mean, Killmonger obviously, was the villain in the first Black Panther, but he was a villain you could understand. I mean, his rage and his passion and his his rage and his drive was understandable. He in his mind the people who look like him and who are oppressed all over the world, and his paternal lineage was linked to a group of people, a nation who looked like him, but took no part in stopping the atrocities that happened and still do happen. And his hate for them, drove him to avenge, his people, his ancestors, and the people, and to help the people now, fight back. With Namor, he was, with technology, coming along with Riri, what she did, even though what she created was not intended to do what it happened, necessarily. But with him, he saw a threat to his people, and he acted, in his mind, in accordance to protecting them. Whether or not it would have been the best way to protect them, is, not exactly out of the question. But as a king, he, as I said, has a responsibility to protect his people and to make sure they live and thrive. And he saw a threat to them, and he acted in a way that would send a message. But because with Wakanda revealing themselves, he thought, his Talokan needed something to, even though he would have preferred them to remain a mystery, even though obviously people, had sightings of him, but he realized with technology coming along as it did, whether or not the people creating it were intending for it to do a certain thing, he believed his people would have been discovered eventually and would have seen themselves as a target because, as he said, which he had seen, people who look like him and like the Wakandans have been and still are, have had atrocities done to them and have suffered at the hands of people who saw them as lesser beings and wanted resources that that were native to or indigenous to where they're from. And he saw this, as a threat to them because, vibranium, is the rarest and most valuable mineral on Earth in the MCU, and the potential for it, practically limitless. And what people would do for it, as we have seen, obviously, can lead to, bloodshed and death. And here, even though the people of Talokan, are of obviously a different caliber to humans, but unfortunately with humanity, we have a tendency to nearly or enact annihilation on different ethnicities or belief systems or people or species. As I mentioned in other videos, not just humans but other species, because arguably in a sense, even though the Talokan are, I think, human, but they're like humanity on a different caliber because he's a mutant, and the people along the lines have like from the plant that Chalk had gifted to them, have made them, different and unique in another way. But with people, or in the sense of, I guess you could say, the average human, whether you're an average Joe or you have someone like the power of like a major political power or something, what people can see and do because of what they see as different, or who they see as different, or what these differences may have, the destruction that can happen is obviously horrifying. And Namor's case, was even though his idea to strike first and strike hard and to protect his people sort of parallels Killmonger's ideal to strike first in like response to atrocities done, and which is I kind of like what Namor was kind of doing as well. But with him, even though he said even though Namor said it was about people who look like him, and Namor did say it was people who look like him, he was like targeting the entire surface world except for Wakanda if they supported them. That means people even that look like him would have been targeted just because they were surface people, if I'm understanding that correctly. In a sense, like what he was justifying his cause partly because of people of Hispanic heritage have suffered and still suffer at the hands of but Namor's case, I don't feel necessarily like he had like the same presence, and like he didn't have like a similar presence like Killmonger had. You could feel the hate and the energy from him, though obviously, Namor was coming at it from a sort of different perspective. And, both, were of, um, Killmonger obviously was of royal blood, and Namor was hit the king, and he or as his people believed, the living God. And I think Namor was, even though they say he wasn't a villain, it he still basically was the villain, if there is one, because it felt like I was trying to see if he really wasn't the villain, who was, and you didn't get like a sense of who was. So I guess he was, but he was like more along the lines of a tragic villain. But maybe instead of like how he approached it, maybe he could have been like on the lines of like, I want to protect my people. I don't want them in danger. I mean, I don't want to go to war, but I know what happens to people who look like me and who look like you, and I've seen it, and I don't want to cause any more suffering, but I have to think of my people first. I'm sorry if that seems cruel or awful. It's just it's my duty as king to make sure my people thrive, not just that, just to survive. And as queen, I'm sure you can understand that. I don't want to go to war. I do not want to cause any suffering or death. But I know what people who look. But I know what people are willing to do. I have seen it firsthand. I saw it when before I buried my mother, and regardless or not if that makes me a villain, I have to think of my people first, and I will do what I have to do to defend them. Something like that, that kind of energy would have been better, because I think like you have like the character of Atuma in this film, and I was thinking maybe he was the villain. Maybe he was like pulling the strings or like pushing certain buttons on Namor to do a certain thing. Maybe he could have been the villain, or if that maybe someone else. I'm not sure who, but like Atuma has mostly been presented as a villain. I mean, he's had like, I think in some more recent mediums and adaptations, he's been like presented another way. But with this, I thought he could have been the villain. Maybe not just like sort of like Killmonger. He was like wanting to protect his people, but he thought like war and like the destruction of those who would destroy us would have maybe been his approach. But we do not get that, and it feels like the struggle or the problem or the conflict here in the film was not what it could have been. It felt like it was not as like compelling. It was not like on the same like caliber as like the conflict between that it was involving what Killmonger's drive was to do, what his goals were, and the more, like I said, even though he said it was like, I guess he sort of took like the opportunity, like in the sense of like the rest of the surface will come for Wakanda, and that Wakanda will call Talokan to support them. I guess he was taking like his defeat as like a political or I guess you could say political advantage, but I don't know. It feels like the conflict was, was not like directed and like written like in a way that you could really feel and understand. I mean, there was the whole thing like with Everett Ross. I mean, it almost feels like he almost felt like his character, like this is a small part, but it felt like his character maybe wasn't necessarily needed. I mean, Wakanda has spies, war dogs in other countries, and I thought, one of them could have, found out, the whole thing about Riri Williams. Riri was fine. I mean, she was, I think, the main character directing in some ways the comedy of this, and her Ironheart suit, I believe, was okay. I mean, I don't think it was maybe all that great, but with Everett Ross, it felt like his character almost like was unneeded. The whole thing about him being detained and everything. I mean, him off. maybe he could have like maybe it would have been like say like possibly been like an international conspiracy or something like enacting what was happening, but no, he almost like I said felt unneeded. Like he could have like taken him out and just put like a Wakandan war dog or spy, and he could have done the same thing. But I don't know. It felt like his character was wasted. A lot of these characters felt kind of wasted, as I've said. But no, there was so much here that was like undone. Like I think I mentioned this, but like with T'Challa, his death, like his absence here, it was mentioned and brought up certain times because there was the whole dedication with Chadwick Boseman, the title beginning, which was really touching and was really nice. But just the character of T'Challa, his death, his absence wasn't as felt necessarily. I mean, like with Shuri, I'm going back to Shuri again. Like you don't feel like her like trying to live up to like you don't feel like her like sincerely like trying to feel like she's not like really living up to like what his image, to his example. Like he didn't feel like she was trying to fill his shoes, and like maybe she was trying to fill his shoes, but maybe trying to honor him, but like go her own way in the sense like that would have like honored like just T'Challa and Chadwick Boseman's legacy. But I mean, I could be wrong here. Maybe it really was maybe what Chadwick Boseman would have wanted. I mean, I'm not him. I can't speak for him, obviously, and I'm not trying to. It's just like what I see here. It feels like there is something like the heart and like the meaning of this is like really really absent. You don't feel like the same kind of like connection to the characters and the feeling of the you don't feel the emotion or like the characters as I said did what they could with their roles, with the stuff they were given. But T'Challa's death, like it wasn't like as present. Like it should not maybe necessarily not should have been like overbearing, but like it should have been overbearing to Shuri, and like to Ramonda, but specifically Shuri because she was she's supposed to be queen, and she was supposed to like try to to live up to her what she was supposed to be. She was supposed to be the leader and protector of her nation, and we did not get the feeling that she was trying to go towards that. I mean, obviously, what happened with Ramonda, what her anger and her hurt was, understandable. What she could have done was doing. It felt like it was like it felt like it wasn't like directed well. Like I'm sorry, like I may be repeating some stuff, but the scene where she has like Namor at her mercy. It feels like the whole the words she secretly shared with Injadaka on the ancestral plane, and what Ramonda said and everything. You didn't have like the same like kind of conversation. Like you really thought like you didn't have like the conversation like between Shuri and Ramonda about what to do in regards to Namor and to Talakon. Like we had like that, like sort of that conversation between Shuri and Injadaka, but we didn't get that similar or opposing scene with her and her mother. Like what was best to do in this situation? Like what should a queen, a protector should do in this situation where war seems inevitable? What is the best thing to do in a situation that what should be best done to protect your people, and as your own individual, like what your personal feelings are, like maybe like explore or like listen to what your heart says. Like Maku, I think he mentions like what he asked Shuri what her heart is telling her, and which I think was good. It was placed there, but you don't get like the feeling like he is trying to like advise her as much as like I think he would. Like like I said, the feeling that you get from these characters and like what they do and they say isn't as like unfortunately compelling as it was in the first film, and there's just so much lacking in this movie that I'm just really disappointed by. I mean, like I said, I was really looking forward to this movie so much. This is just like a major let. Shuri in the moment where she, has more at her mercy and she inadvertently decides to spare him. It felt like unearned. Like she didn't like come up to the point. Like we're in that scene. Like she's struggling with what to do, but like to say that journey that she should have gone on. Like here in this moment, she might have like had a feeling what she was like, what her different thoughts along the journey of what she was going to do. Like immediately at the first idea was to kill him, but maybe as time goes on, maybe she's struggling. As like M'Baku advises peace because of what like he believes eternal war would happen if Namor is killed, because he's seen as a living god to Talokan, and if he was killed, like his people would not stop at trying to avenge him until possibly Wakanda is burned to the ground and everyone from that nation is dead. But here in that moment, Shuri would be thinking, maybe not this, like she would be struggling with what to do. Like, should I kill him? Should I spare him? Like, or maybe I should try to find something that like feels the best. Like she like said like in the sense like of like an alliance in that was come from like broken pieces, which I thought was an interesting compelling sort of kind of compelling line. I mean, you don't think of broken people as great leaders, but those who suffer, those who have gone through tragic times, they they can like find things and see different perspectives maybe that some people don't. Shuri, with her in that moment, she could have been like thinking and feeling everything along her journey that she should have gone on, at least in my opinion. Here it feels like the movie was not as like the characters and like I'm sorry, it feels like Shuri's in that moment. It did not feel as like it did not feel like everything had come up to that moment. It felt like sort of jumbled, or it felt like I'm not going to say random. It felt more like it feels like she did not she did not have like the conversations or all the conversations or experiences of with like not just her conversations with others, but like her own thoughts and feelings, like what she said to others, like not in a conversation wise, but her just speaking her mind, or like speaking not just from her mind but from her heart as well. And it feels like that was not like what we got in that scene was not like a culmination of everything. It led up to that moment, but it did not feel like everything like was really as well done. There was also the scene like where he like had his like spear jabbed through the Black Panther suit, and even though it said it was like raw vibranium, and I guess like I think they say as it's mentioned raw vibranium is unstable, as she said in the first film, and I guess it would cut through like vibranium that is stabilized. I mean, I had like mixed feelings about that scene. I mean, kind of frankly, I'm almost kind of surprised she, survived that, because I mean, like it went right through her. I mean, it didn't it didn't go through like her heart and everything, but I think it's probably severed like the spinal cord. And like a friend of mine mentioned this to me, that like I said, like that night after we watched the first movie, like how did Killmonger die after being jabbed in the heart by that? I said, while the hardship gives like the gifted incredible prowess and everything, I mean, they're still human, even though they're like above human, but they're still human. It didn't like turn them into like say like a werepanther. Like if it turned them like I said into a werepanther, he would have obviously survived. Like the vibranium, possibly could hurt them, but I don't think it would have like necessarily killed him. But it did kill Killmonger in that scene, but it didn't. This scene did. That part it did not kill Shuri. I'm just surprised she was able to stand. I mean, I thought she would have just fallen down, and if like the healing process would have taken time to heal her, but it was like that. But though there was the whole power thing, like she felt like even more powerful than like Killmonger or T'Challa was when they had the heart-shaped bird. But I don't know. It still feels like I don't know. It felt like the healing thing. There's this is another problem. Like the whole, like as I mentioned earlier, the whole power scale and power level thing, and it's kind of like it was like jumbled around and everything. But I don't know. There's just so many problems with this movie, and like I said, I've been looking forward to this ever since it was announced. I mean, this has been my most anticipated movie of the year, and I thought it was going to be really the best MCU film, or one of the best, and if not one of the best films of all time. But unfortunately, the movie fell short. I mean, there are good scenes here, but it is not what I thought it would be. And as a fan of some of the MCU and of Black Panther, I'm really let down. I hope you liked this video. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. I'll be trying to come out with more videos, when I can. I'm going to try to get back to videos with video and image overlay, when I can, but also do videos, like this as well. Once again, I hope you liked this video, and thank you for watching.